Tonight we're going to do online to offline organizing 101. I'm going to go to the next slide here. So we'll do some introductions here. I can't see everybody, but if everybody wants to hop off mute and give their name, their pronouns. I don't know if anybody's with an organization, but if you are, let us know. And what I'm curious about related to the content of this training is, actually, let me see here. What did we have as our icebreaker tonight? Yep, I just want to make sure. What's the online tool that has helped you connect with other people who share your values the most? So where are you meeting other supporters of education? I can start off and say that a lot of the people that I meet are through Facebook, and specifically Facebook private groups is where a lot of this work happens. And then even before I got into this work specifically with education, I'd say Twitter was a big place to meet people who shared my political beliefs. All right, and I'll pass it over to Imani.
Oh, hey you guys. So my name is Imani Clark. I use she, they pronouns, and I'm the youth organizer with MEJC. And like Drew, I think that Facebook, especially in the city I live in, Saginaw, Michigan, heavy Facebook city. So that was one of the really big a tool that we used. But also working with the youth, I found that using kind of newer things like Snapchat, we'll do TikToks and going to Instagram really resonates with that younger audience. But as a base, Facebook has been really, really good. But we also do other organizing tools like I've used Empower. I've used I'm blanking. Um yeah, but we've used other tools that are more organizer like rooted or organizer friendly. But definitely Facebook is the top one. And for youth, we tend to go towards Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Sometimes we'll do and sometimes we will do Twitter, just because that's just fun. But yeah, that's the tools that we use. And then I can pass it over to Cynthia.
Hello. I am starting a Facebook group, so I'm using Facebook. I'm hoping others will do more of the youth engagement on other platforms. I do use Instagram and Threads, but not for the group right now. And I just started a Facebook group. It's called Be Accepting. So we have a little buzzing bees going on, and we're trying to be active. To get us going and writing campaigns and things like that. And I use he, her, she pronouns, and I am mother of a transgender and a grandmother of a non-binary. So I should be better at remembering those pronouns to add in there.
Awesome. And you want to pass it over to, I see Troy is next. Troy, if you're able to hop off mute.
Yeah, hi. I'm Troy. I use he, him. I am over in the West Michigan area, specifically Ottawa County. And I am primarily engaging through Facebook, private groups, a few messenger chats. I ran for school board 2 years ago and lost to a very far right Ottawa Impact candidate. If you're familiar with things that are happening over here in Ottawa County in West Michigan, and I am intending to run again for school board this fall, and hopefully I'll use tonight and feel I'm gearing up to start getting going with my campaign.
That's great. We'll have to chat on the C4 side of things for sure. This is a C3 space, but definitely would love to connect after this call about that. Great. I'm going to pass it over to Martha next.
Hey, hello, my name is Marta from Casa in York, Pennsylvania. Sometimes I use WhatsApp or Facebook or Signal. Not too much Instagram or other apps. No, not just more WhatsApp.
WhatsApp is a great one, actually. I forgot about that.
Yes.
WhatsApp is really good for, especially when we're doing our like health and social justice kind of work. And we do working with on like immigration and stuff. And the kids know how to use WhatsApp too. So yeah, thank you. I forgot about that one. WhatsApp is great.
Great one. That's
Yeah.
a great one.
The broadcast list, that's work better. Yeah. And I pass to Johnny.
Hi, everyone. I don't have my camera on. My camera's not working, but I'm just joining. So it looks like I'm saying my name. My name is Joni Orndello. I'm with the Next Steps Law Firm in Jackson, Michigan. And my pronouns are she and her. And is there anything else that I was supposed to add?
Yeah, you know what, and you might have missed this. So we're just asking, what's the online tool that you use the most for doing, education justice work or any sort of organizing work that you do?
So I use Facebook the most, and I actually have a group that I'm involved in, and we have a group chat with Facebook. But we also are looking to expand to Instagram, and I know a lot of kids use okay, now I'm probably showing my age, but I can't remember what Snapchat. That's it. That's where the kids use it. So if I need to connect with kids, I'll probably expand to that.
That's a great one. Yeah, the ones that Monty mentioned, I feel like it is different, like across generations too, of like the ones that are better for certain folks. Awesome.
Yeah, honestly, Johnny, you took the words right out of my mouth. Like before you came on, I was like, I do youth organizing, and we use Instagram, we use Snapchat and TikTok. So yeah, you're already on the right path.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Appreciate it. Now we know who's in the room here. So I'm going to start off, this whole training is essentially about the way that we do organizing now with the internet, but I want to step back and look at things that we did before we had digital tools, right? So a lot of y'all might know, but we did things like flyers, pamphlets, leaflets, plastering those on walls of businesses and windows and things like that. There's door knocking and canvassing, having conversations face to face in neighborhoods. Hosting things like community meetings is a really great way to engage people in person. We can look at the civil rights movement. It was this huge, impactful thing in the 1960s and made a lot of positive changes. Things that they did were things like boycotts, sit-ins, march-ins, things like that. Also, I'm just thinking about the open letter tactic. So Martin Luther King Jr. had the letter from Birmingham jail that was telling people, take direct action. Had a huge, impact on public opinion and how people were being mobilized to get involved with the movement. Obviously, we still have all of these things, but now we have this digital technology to supplement that and hopefully take the work even further now that we have it. So I'm going to start, I think we're going to just have this be within this group and not do breakouts because we have a smaller group tonight. What I want to know, if we can go around again, if everybody's cool with that, who here has been or knows somebody who's been introduced to political work through the internet specifically, or maybe they got more involved in the internet age? Can I have anybody get off mute and give any examples of that?
I will. This is Cynthia, and I'm myself. I mean, I have never joined political campaigns like I have, and so I'm learning lots and doing as much as I can. But I also know others, friends, and in the area who are gaining more knowledge using, organizing as well as just using the internet to find out information.
Great. Great. And who else here?
So this is Joni. In my introduction, I said that we use Facebook. We have a Facebook page and we go to community events and we have one of those scan squares. They can scan and go to our Facebook page and they can learn more about our organization. That's as far as I am with activism. Most of mine is just in person, going to school board meetings and talking to families and things like that.
That's really smart though. And that honestly cuts to the heart of everything we're going to be talking about tonight is, you know, how do you bridge that gap between in-person work and that online work? So I love that. Anybody else on here want to share?
I know that you know, we mentioned Facebook a bunch of times. But it is also a tool that I've seen people get introduced into politics or activism, but it was through what is it, fake news?
Yeah. Yeah,
So it
no,
was still
totally. I
through
was going to talk
Facebook,
about that. Yeah.
but yeah, yeah. So still using the tools, but just in a completely different way, or just with misinformation rather than you know, how you guys are using it.
Yeah. I think that's totally like worth bringing up too, is like the negative impacts that this stuff can have and like how we need to use it, you know, for good, as cheesy as that sounds. Anybody else want to share here? Okay, I will keep it rolling. So, you know, in keeping with all of that there, I want to emphasize like, you know, here are some things that we've seen only in the past, you know, maybe 10, 15 years, that were these movements that started really online and went into offline action, um, or vice versa, and they were helped by digital and social media. So I'm thinking of things like the Arab Spring, right, is something that happened in the early 2010s, in like North Africa, where a lot of folks in those countries, like Libya, um, were, you know, mobilizing against their government and protesting. And a lot of those protests were used with like a very early version of Twitter, right? Same with Occupy Wall Street. So that was a big, you know, mass protest movement around the same time, on Wall Street. And a lot of the coordination for that was done with social media. You can think also too of the Me Too movement a couple of years ago, right? This was a hashtag that was passed around. A lot of people describing their experiences with sexual harassment and sexual abuse, using this hashtag. You know, very powerful thing that people were following that was entirely like used on the internet. The March for Our Lives movement was a lot of, you know, students going against gun violence. They were organizing their protests online. Um, as we know, the BLM movement, and all of the protests surrounding the killing of George Floyd, you know, we were all, you know, locked inside at the time, as you recall. This is peak COVID. So a lot of the organizing for those things, the information, I remember seeing this and communicating with people, you know, on the internet and through social media. You know, this is where the protest is happening. You know, here are videos of police abuses happening on the scene. It was all happening like right in front of our eyes, like on social media. We're watching it. You know, again, I want to emphasize too the negative effects that this can have, right? Like the January 6th insurrection, like very famously, you know, Donald Trump was banned from Twitter because he was tweeting things out that were inspiring people to, you know, join this insurrection at the country's capital. You know, he was driving people there, you know, with digital and social media communication. So it just shows you the effects that these things can have on our movements. So some characteristics of movements that move like from the online space into the offline space. There's usually coordinated action across social media platforms. So that's, you know, what we were talking about with the hashtag #MeToo. I remember during BLM, a lot of people were posting black squares to show their support of that movement. Another thing is a quicker dissemination of event planning information. So we can use social media to get the word out a lot easier. You can text all of your followers and say, hey, we're meeting up at this time and place. Or, you know, you can make a post on your Facebook page, say, you know, everybody wear a red shirt. A lot more easy to get that information out there. We're going to talk tonight about memes. I mean, I think back to that whole, like, you know, where are people getting radicalized and politicized? Sometimes it happens through memes. I think especially, you know, for younger people, but I've seen people of every age bracket, you know, using this very quick image with text in order to convey like really big ideas. And then also use of in-person events for more committed people. So that's what we want to talk about tonight, is how do you take those people from the Facebook group to that in-person event, if you're able to. Do we have any questions? I want to stop for a sec just to, you know, pause for reactions or questions. Anybody? All good? Cool. Just want to make sure. Here are the drawbacks of just doing your organizing in only the online space. It's low, you know, it's low commitment. So, you know, people think, okay, I can just sign this petition and then be done. It's kind of hard to keep people in the groove. So while we are making it easier to access, it's also easier for us to lose track of all those people, right? It's harder to identify and maintain leaders. So when we're doing any type of movement work, as some of you may know, you know, we need leaders to actually, you know, be there to talk with our targets, right? I know a lot of these movements that I mentioned before, they had a hard time getting the demands that they were looking for, right? Because they didn't have a person at the center of the work. Like everything needs to be democratic, but it also we need to have some people in charge. Because then it's like if something changes in your movement, you have to have somebody who's able to give that information out to all the followers, right? Also, online action, just as we know, it's not always as compelling as an offline action, right? You know, nobody throws a protest or a march online, right? Those things can be very, you know, compelling in some ways, for sure. You know, I think the Me Too movement was a really, really like compelling thing to see all of those people, you know, spreading that hashtag around. But I think everybody could agree, like if all of those people who did the hashtag were at a march or something like that, that would have been, you know, a more compelling thing. It's just how it goes, right? With any offline action. You know, same with any protest or anything like that. It's not to discredit the online action, but it's just noting that, you know, when we actually go offline, people notice that.
And
We
Drew,
have more
I
like,
could,
yep.
oh, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, and if I could just add one more thing
Yeah.
about it. There is I don't know if you guys remember the like when people were asking to put like black squares up on their Instagram page. And it was for like Black Lives Matter, or maybe it was for George Floyd, which is an act of solidarity that is online, but not at all compared to like how Drew was saying, actually going to the marches, actually getting together with your community. Yes, there was a movement, and yes, there was a collective movement, and a lot of people did put up black squares, but that didn't really equal anything in like real world terms.
No, absolutely. That's a great example of that too. And I know, you know, while that is, you know, it's appreciated solidarity and things like that, and shows where you stand. I think a lot of people who were organizing in the BLM movement were expressing that black square is not enough, right? And I understand that's maybe all some folks could do, but it's like we need to combine those actions with the in-person things if possible. Also, hi, welcome, Jarrett. Not to call you out, but just wanted to say hello. I saw you just joined. Yeah, another drawback too of doing online organizing is, you know, as Imani mentioned earlier, misinformation spreads really easy online. You know, so you just have to be wary of things like that, just to make sure that, you know, it's not hurting the work that you're doing. So as I've mentioned, you know, there are a lot of benefits to having both of these pieces working together. We all have lives that are both online and offline, I think, to an extent, unless you're fully off the grid, which would be nice, but you know, I don't think everybody has that privilege, right? Um, it's very easy to keep track of the people you're working with, though, if you are able to use some kind of online database, like a Facebook group, right, and keep track of all your members. As I've said before, getting the word out about things that you're doing in person is easier if you have an online platform. You can kind of use offline events to test and see, you know, if a person is committed, right? They might be on the Facebook group a lot, but let's see if they're able to make it to an in-person event. It's a good way to see if they are committed. Online like organizing can also like, you know, help you bring people into on the ground work. But definitely, as we mentioned, like being offline is the most effective way to take action. And I understand too that there are things that are barring people from getting to things in person, right? There's transportation, there's disabled folks and stuff. That's not that's not what I'm referring to. That's a different situation. But I'm just saying, you know, for the majority of folks, it's like, you know, going to an in-person action, you know, is where we get in the headlines of the news and things like that. So the online tools to drive offline action. So we talked about some of this. Definitely social media platforms. We've seen Facebook, Instagram, Twitter used quite a bit. I know a bunch of you mentioned on here, those private closed groups are a great way to build those relationships and get information out to people. It's also nice too, if you're working in a place where there are a lot of those extremists, having that close, it's a nice, you know, sanctuary to plan about things and just vent, right? I know that this is tough in a lot of communities. Action Network and Action Builder, which we're going to talk about later, are really good data tools. Also tools to get information out about actions as well. I think everybody on here should have signed up through Action Network for this event. So you got to see it like that, right? It's pretty easy to use, put your information in there, and it gets you, you know, a Zoom link and things like that. Mobile messaging tools are really nice. So that's like through text and Empower. That's where you can send out a mass text to people and to get that information out. And then phone banking, I think, is a really, really nice thing to do if you have a list of phone numbers from something like Action Network or Action Builder. You can kind of call through that list and say, hey, you know, I saw that you're, you know, you also live in Wayne County. We'd love to set up a time to chat about, you know, the work that we do, right? I want to pause here again. Does anybody have any questions about things that we've gone through? Just want to make sure I give the space, but appreciate it.
Hi, I
Yeah,
wanted to
totally.
know, with the tools that you used, you talked about Action Network and the other tool, will you be providing like links to them or?
I'm gonna show you what they look like.
Okay.
They are like, you have to subscribe. They are things that like we pay for as our organization. So MEJC, our coalition, we pay for it. But all of our member and like partner organizations, they have access to that. So I don't know if you're a part of an organization, but like that's something like when we have our partners, they get access to our Action Network and Action Builder.
Okay.
They are, yeah, they're like paid subscriptions though. But I'm gonna do a screen share when we get to that section and show you.
So Drew, I'm sorry, before you move on, I just had a question. What do you mean when you say phone banking? I'm thinking of gathering phone numbers and calling them, but is there a tool or something?
You know, you could use, so yeah, I think that's a good question. Like we have used Michigan Voices is another like paid subscription thing that you can use if you have a large set of like, you know, 1,000 people, right? We've done that for bond and millage elections in certain places. But I mainly just mean, you know, pulling up a list of people. Like I said, if you live in, you know, Wayne County, or I live in, you know, or if you live in Fenton or something like that, getting a list of those people and just calling through them and just saying, you know, if they're cool with that, if you got it, you know, through, you know, maybe your Facebook group or something, that's mainly what I mean, right? Just kind of manually just dialing through. But there are systems to use for that software.
And I
Does
was
that kind
gonna
of answer the
say-
question? Oh, sorry.
Oh yeah. I was just gonna say, and if you're looking for maybe a more kind of like basic tool, and you have a smaller group, or trying to reach a smaller demographic, you can always do use just all the Google Suites, you know, have people sign up on Google Forms so they can it will internalize that information, and it'll create an Excel sheet that you can that'll have that contact information so you can refer back to. That's just a free tool.
That's a
I
great
do
idea.
suggest if you're doing bigger organizing, especially with the election coming up, so there's going to be a lot of GOTV stuff. That's when you might want to look into, or your organization wants to look into the bigger ones, like you were saying, Action Network, Through Text, Through Talk. But for smaller groups, or a smaller event, or a smaller, you know, action, Google is free, and it is pretty user friendly, and it's a great starter tool.
That's a really good idea. I appreciate that, Amani. Yeah. I'm gonna be, if you haven't used Google Forms before, that's our evaluation form is through that. So you'll kind of see what it looks like. Yeah, that is a great place to gather phone numbers to call through people. Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Cool. So I'm gonna pose to the group again. How do you engage people online, and how do you get them excited about the work that you're doing? So if you do have an action coming up, right? If you have a protest, if you have, you know, a meeting, if you just want to talk about, you know, an issue in your school district, right? If the transportation's really bad, or if the school lunches stink, or right, things like that. Or if there's attacks on LGBTQ students, I know is happening all over the state right now. How are you engaging with people online, and what are the certain things that you are doing?
Right now, just starting up, we have a Google Sheet document that allows them to enter in if they've engaged in something. So I started out by sending out 11 letters to support the LGBTQ community at our local school. And so I am encouraging others, and I gave them a copy of what I wrote. Not that I think anybody wants to use my words, but you know, it was just a little personal letter to them, not by name. And it was handing off friends to friends. So my grandchild might hand out only 3, but when they give them to those 3, they give them extras so that then they can hand them out to their friends, and just passing some support and telling them that the majority of people support them, even though there's all this hate around them, and that we need to do more, and we must do more, and we know that. But there's other little things of action that they can click on and send out this letter or that letter. In one of our first meetings, that's what we plan on doing, is showing them even more letter writing, because we call ourselves Be Accepting, or Little Bees. So we're taking that as like honey. So how much honey can you make? How much honey as a little bee can you do? What kind of nice things can you send to somebody?
It's fantastic. I love that. I love that. And I think too, like making things like that, what you just said is, you know, kind of having like a group name and something, a fun thing attached to the action, right? Is like, I think that's a really engaging tactic to use. So I like that a lot. Anybody else have any other examples of like ways they've engaged people online, or
I can-
ideas of doing it? Yeah.
I can tell you some ways that we've been engaging people online, because we do a lot of school board meetings, is we'll post directions to the school board, which the school board doesn't have. We post how to get there. We'll share the videos, clips from the videos. We share articles. I know one person in the group shared this threatening flyer that was being passed out at the school, and that got everybody out there. I think they had to move the school board meeting to a bigger venue, and there was probably hundreds of people, and we were there until almost 10 o'clock at night speaking up against it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, so I'm hearing two things in there. So that I like here is for engagement is giving out information that is not readily available, right? Is really important. I think we see that too a lot with voting and just a lot around elections time and season, people will be sharing out voting information. Just basic info people should have, right? So also giving the directions to the school board meeting, that's engaging because people want that. And yeah, the other thing is, unfortunately, you know, we do have, you know, wacky people out there who are sending out threatening things. You know, showing your supporters that like, no, we're not going to stand for this, right? I think is a very engaging thing. And as unfortunate as it is that, you know, people are violent and threatening like that, it is something that riles people up. So, you know, amplifying that type of thing in order to push back against it it's a great idea. So appreciate that, Joni. Anybody else want to share out? Cool. I appreciate it. I'm going to add one thing here. I feel like in our private Facebook groups that we've done at MEJC, to try to engage people is just putting out a post with just a very open-ended question. Sometimes not even related to education a lot, right? We'll do something like, you know, what are you going to do over spring break, right? Or who is your favorite teacher? You know, tell us something about them. Whereas it's like, yeah, it's somewhat related to this work, but it's not actually, you know, we're not trying to solve anything within it, but we're building relationships. And I think that that's a good way to get involved with the work is, you know, it doesn't always have to be this incredibly serious thing. It is very serious, but we don't always have to be, you know, dire and severe, right? You know, thanks all for that. Cool. So some ways to get people like from the online space to the offline space. So we talked about Action Network. You know, using Action Network to set up an event like how I did with this, right? Of course, this is online, but you can do the same thing on Action Network to set up an in-person action. You know, you can have a map and directions on there, you know, say, hey, we're going to meet at, you know, City Hall on April 7th, right? That's a good way to set that up. You can also have the people who are, you know, if you have somebody who's always talking on social media and always comments on the posts, they might be somebody who is talkative in person, really likes public speaking. So that's a good way to get them involved, right? It's like, you like to talk a lot, you know, here's a role. I find that giving people a role is very, very, it's a good way to get people engaged. Doing an in-person delivery of signatures from an online petition, right? So, you know, you set up the online petition stuff, you got all of these signatures. Let's get a group of people to bring those printed out signatures to the school board and have a very compelling case, right? So we use the online petition to get all those signatures. Let's show them that we really mean business by bringing it in person. And then the other thing is like, make your meetings as accessible as possible, right? Like I think everybody on this call, you know, has maybe had issues with transportation, or they had to watch their kids, or it's like, well, I want to go to that meeting, but it's at dinner time. You know, bring that food with you. You know, I've heard organizers say that across the board. Like if you're hosting an event, make sure there's food. You know, so if you are gonna tell your people online in your Facebook group, we're having an event, you know, try to make sure these things are as available as possible. You know, maybe even set up a carpool. You know, have somebody on duty to watch kids and things like that. A really good way to make sure that you will get good attendance at your in-person meetings. All right, let me see here. Cool. All right, I'm going to pass it over to Imani now. You're going to take on this section.
Hey y'all, I'm back. So for this section, we're just going to be doing talking about some strategic digital planning. And what this breaks down to, or the two most important elements that I see, is constant communication and that relationship building, relationship or organizing. Because when you are digital, you do miss that face to face. So you do have to be really diligent about communication, really diligent about building those relationships so they can go offline. So the first thing that we ask is, where are the people that you want to find online? If you are looking for youth, we talked about, they might be on a different social media platform, Instagram, Snapchat, Discord, things like that. So it's really knowing your audience. We have in our city a lot of religious leaders who tend to use Facebook, and they also have kind of like a pastor group chat. But that is where they are. That is the demographic. So that might be something that you have to investigate. Where's your audience? What do they use online, and find that and use that. And then what is an offline action you can drive people to? Because again, we don't want people to just be social media warriors. We want them to be a digital and kind of that boots to the ground organizing. And a great way to do that is to give someone a tangible goal, or a tangible date or event that they can go to. So maybe you are discussing, you're doing meetings on Zoom about the school board, and maybe questions you can bring to it, but the actual thing you want them to drive to, the actual thing you want them to do offline, is go to an actual school board meeting and then discuss the thing that you talked about online. And then how do you maintain a base online and keep them engaged between actions? Again, that goes right back to that communication and relationship building. Drew talked about sometimes what we'll do at MEJC is not necessarily only post things about a campaign or event or a political thing. Sometimes we will just ask simple questions like, how was your day today? What are you doing for spring break? What books are you interested in? Maybe even start something like an online book club. Just activities and little fun things that keep people engaged, keep people communicating, keep people commenting, that are still in the realm of what you're doing. So if it's education work, mention books, mention libraries, but it doesn't have to be like, let's get this policy work done. Just little ways to keep in touch, keep tabs, really go a really long way. And that is for all different generations as well. Communication and those relationships are really, really key. And then we have how do you develop leaders using online and offline tools and actions? And again, goes back to communication. And where is your audience? But now we're not just thinking about online. Where's your audience offline as well? Maybe you go to a local coffee shop and do a listening session there, because that's where the people are. Or maybe you do have a Facebook group, but you meet once a month, in person or something like that. Something to balance when it's just Zoom, or it's, just FaceTime, because that can be tiring. And what I noticed during the pandemic is people want to see people. People do eventually get to a point where I want to see another person. I want to meet face to face. I want to have a face to face conversation, and that's really important to think about in the back of your head when you're organizing, especially when you're developing leaders, because sometimes we might compartmentalize our leaders. Like, this leader is only for online, or this leader is only for in person. So that is just something to think about when you're doing your strategic digital planning. Then we have how can we develop an online leader into an offline leader? And some of this we discussed before, but one element that we didn't bring up was accountability. Sometimes we do have very active online leaders, and it is hard to push them into the offline section, but it might just be you have to communicate with that online leader. Maybe transportation is an issue, maybe childcare is an issue, because all of these are real life, struggles. So it is simply easier to do things online. So maybe find what is an obstacle, what is stopping that person from being an offline leader, and see how you can remedy that, or see how you can somehow meet in the middle. And then the last one is, how do you create a routine for engaging online activists consistently? And again, a lot of this is repeat, and it is consistency. It is consistently communicating. It is consistently maybe doing listening sessions, or doing one-on-ones, or hopping on Zoom meetings, so people can put a face to the name. Or when people hear about your organization, they have a image of what they do, and it's not just like crickets. And again, that routine comes from consistent communication, consistent posting. You don't have to meet like every week, but do plan on having consistent meeting times, something standard that people can either come to or gather around, and it's a staple in what your organization is doing. And do we have any questions before we go to the next slide? I didn't want to rush anything.
And this is, I will add though that our organization, while like we might be a little bit larger than other people's, I think even for a smaller group, having some kind of semblance of a digital plan might be smart. So, we're going to be sharing all this stuff back with everybody after this, but maybe try to take some of these questions and answer them for yourselves. It's really helpful to figuring out your online work and how you can push people to action. Just answering some of these questions for yourself. Cool. I will move on though if we don't have anything.
All right, and we did touch on social media, but just to do a quick recap, um, uh, if I, well, yeah, we can just ask it out loud, honestly. We have a pretty intimate group. So what social media sites do you or your organization have? Do they have a actual page that is dedicated to them? Do they have a website? Like what social media things is your organization using? And you can come off chat and say it, it's fine. I mean, you can come off mute and say it, it's fine.
This is Jarrett Johnson. I don't have an organization. It's actually a for-profit, but it's tackling a social issue. So I have Instagram, Facebook, and I'm looking to probably do Twitter. Not Twitter, but TikTok.
TikTok is a really, really good one. TikTok reaches across a lot of platforms. You might often see a TikTok on, you can see a TikTok on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. So it reaches across a lot of platforms. That's a really good one to have. Does any have a maybe a website that their organization or their group is using? Because those are really good as well.
This is Jarrett again. I do have a landing page, and it is under our domain name.
Oh yeah. Oh, Drew, you on your way. Okay. Yeah. And what's your group called?
Well, it's a for-profit.
Mhm.
It's called I'm Lit Learning. It's a hip hop educators marketplace where teachers buy and sell hip hop learning materials to engage and motivate their students to learn in the classroom.
Oh,
But
that's dope.
doing the research with it, interviewing over 100 teachers, I learned that kids are way behind in the classroom. So I want to like bring that out in the open because a lot of people do not know that.
I think that you in the exact right place because what it sounds like you do lends really well to that digital work or that online work, especially with spreading the message and music and is such like a powerful tool in itself. So yeah, I think yeah, I think you got all the tools. I'm just trying to say.
Thank
Um
you.
yeah, was there anybody else? Or were there any or any questions about even maybe like how would you get that started or something? All right. Feel free to put in the chat if you can think of anything. But just to go back to social media, uh, we know that social media helps make our movement more accessible. And we there's uh
Everybody else hear Imani? Can't hear him. Imani, I can't hear you anymore.
Yep, same thing here.
Okay, I
Money
just want to
broke
make
up
sure.
and then went away. Mhm.
Oh, Imani, yeah, we can't hear you. Should probably here. I'm gonna send her a text, but I'll keep it going. Oh yeah. All right, cool. I'm gonna let her. Okay. Oh, she's back. Great.
oh my God, that was a very real life example of some of the cons of digital organizing.
There you go.
And
Exactly.
that's another
Yeah, we
obstacle.
planned that. We planned that, didn't we? This
I
is
got
show.
Spectrum, y'all, and yeah, my Spectrum internet sucks. But that's a genuine con though. Sometimes accessibility also means internet connection. Um, oh no, I think I remember where I was. Okay. Social media is a great way to put pressure on targets. Um, Social media is a great way to put pressure on targets. We talked about Twitter. How and Twitter was a really great tool in that. And then keeping track of social media metrics and data should be a part of every org's social media strategy. And what that kind of breaks down to is it'll show you like a fail/success rate of some of the posts that you're putting up, which things get the most hits, which gets the most likes, retweets, the most views, and what doesn't. I found that often when I'm posting
Going in and out. Yeah, essentially this is our analytic. Sorry, Imani, we can't hear you anymore. Our analytics for our best performing posts and stuff. So I don't think every
for
every.
immediate
Oh, you got it. Oh, she's kind of back. But yeah, like I was saying, you don't have to go in super in detail, but maybe noting, you can look at this stuff on the back end and see, where are we getting the most engagement is kind of the idea here.
And it also shows like the ups and downs of like the times of when we're getting the most interaction. So maybe posting around Christmas or like the holidays, you get a lot of attention, and then it dies down when people are going back to school, back to work. It also it goes even deeper, and goes into the actual time that you post. So usually people look at their phones right when they're getting up in the morning time, lunchtime, and sometime later in the evening after work. So we tend to post either right in the morning, during that lunch break period, and then depending on what it is, maybe like after 6. You don't want to post too late, but sometime in that, like, I just got off work, I'm scrolling through my phone, like, time frame. And all those can be seen in some of your metrics, your social media metrics, and it's just something to be aware of, and it helps you know when to post, how to post, what to post, and breaks down what your audience likes.
And then I'll kind of show this document too. This is something we could actually like share out and stuff, but this is just some ideas of recommendations from a comms firm about ways to make your social media more engaging. So things like, you know, having consistent visuals in your stuff, you know, having, let's see, like things like emojis in there, different content, so like videos, pictures, different things like that. Having captions on your videos, having like, you know, local, maybe like a local influencer maybe, or you know, people who are active in the education space. Again, it's kind of different on the size of your organization, but just something to, you know, consider and stuff. Yeah,
And then I
we
dropped that in
won't.
the chat if anybody would like to kind of look at it and dive into it further.
All right, here we can go to this part now.
All right. So we do have another little breakout, and this is a really fun one. Where you can make your own meme. My mom calls them memes, but they are pronounced memes. But they're used to like distill big ideas into something that is kind of short and more finite. They're usually humorous or satirical, and it helps spread the word about a topic that is by being like easily shareable. I know you've seen, you know, we've seen memes all across the internet. Some people do like memes in real life, or they'll do like Halloween parties and dress up as a meme. Really popular, great way to kind of get across the image or get across a message in a more humorous way. So I'm going to drop a link in the chat so we can kind of make our own memes. And you know, the question is, you know, how do you make a meme that's engaging to your base of supporters and communicates the ideas of what you of like to communicate an idea that you want them to share, which is a big way of saying like make a meme that can kind of convey what your organization does. And being a meme, it's already kind of gonna be funny, so please don't feel a lot of pressure. And we can come off and share, but let me drop that in there.
And I'll kind of show you how this, it's a pretty easy, I made sure I chose a really easy website to do
Yeah.
this with.
Oh no, I'm sorry, that's not the actual link. Oops, here we go.
You're good.
I know when we do this with our youth, it's a lot of SpongeBob memes, a lot of SpongeBob memes, a lot of SpongeBob memes, a lot of Elmo memes. But yeah, the link is in the chat. We can make a couple. Drew is gonna do a sample one, and I'd love to see some of yours.
Yeah, and there are some like, you know, things like this, right? I'm kind of coming off of here, but you know, things like this guy's having a hard time choosing, right? But it shouldn't be a hard choice to make. I won't explain what's funny about it, but you know, maybe something related to the work that you do or something related to education. Again, don't, you know, there's no wrong answers or wrong things here. We just want to, you know, brainstorm and try something. I'm gonna try to think of one on the spot to make everybody.
Or
Just try to
the
feel
Spider-Man meme is a really popular one.
that
Well,
one's
all the
really good.
Spider-Mans pointing to each other. That one is fine.
Are some of these here? I don't want that one. I'll make one while you guys can watch me make one live. Does everybody have access to this though? I know if you're on your phone, I don't know how easy it is to
Oh yeah,
use.
yeah, is the link working? Cynthia, you kind of at an advantage too with y'all group being like B theme and you know and calling yourself the Hive, because you know Beyonce, you know you can just use a nice little Beyonce meme. You kind of halfway there.
Yes, true. Now, if I just had humor in me at all, but
The good thing
I'll-
about memes though, the picture does a lot of the work.
okay, well, and then so I'm trying in here and I'm looking and I'm thinking everybody but me would be better at this meme making. I can't wait to show them this link. But yeah, okay, I'm working here.
No worries. Here, I'll go off. I'll create one.
Here, I just dropped one in there. I just made it real quick. And it's an overused one, but also the great thing is the great thing about memes is you can't really overuse a meme. They always come back. Somebody's gonna find it funny. Somebody's gonna find it relatable. That's the great thing about online organizing too. You're gonna find those niche pockets somewhere. So that's why, again, no wrong answers. The picture does a lot of the work, and it's a great way to just um use this tool and just post something, and to keep that kind of like constant communication where it doesn't always have to be super serious. You can just put up like a silly meme. So I did one in the chat, and mine is like education should be free, change my mind.
Love it. Okay. Let me get back to our presentation. I'll throw mine in the chat here. Right. Here's the Republican. They're riding the bike. They put the stick in the tire. They say the schools are performing badly. Let's defund them. Oh man, I can't believe. Right. So, what did you expect? If you defund the schools, of course the students are going to perform badly. All right, Joni, I'm just giving you a warning. I'm going to click it.
Oh, nice.
Love it. Yes, exactly. Enjoy.
Yeah,
the
that's
hype.
perfect.
That's fun.
And then
Some people saying
honestly,
default.
I communicate halfway, and I communicate through memes and emojis. If like if I'm texting someone I know personally, it's mostly memes and less words.
I think it is like really like I have done, doing political work sometimes. You can relate to people on a really like, quick level, saying, hey, we both believe in this thing, but this is funny. Communicating in that way and making that bond that way. I'll give folks, we'll do until 7:40 if that's cool.
I'm gonna try to make another one. Let me see.
Connie coming through with another. Love it. Love it. You know, so
That one
take
was just for me.
no, that's hey for me too. For I'm sure a couple more people on this call too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yep, exactly.
I was when I graduated college, it was during the pandemic. So they put a like a hold or whatever on repaying the student loans. So I haven't had to go through that process until now. And I was like, oh, I still gotta do that. So yeah, that was for me. All right, we got
Nice.
one more minute if anybody wanted to
Yeah.
drop something in there. But yeah, this is just like a fun little exercise because even though this can be like pretty silly, it is a great way to again kind of get those less serious posts out that are still around the topic that your group or your organization is doing. And it helps really connect, especially like with younger audiences. Because like I said, I communicate through memes and and emojis.
Great way to communicate about, you know, issues that you care about, right? Like this is something, and it's relatable too, right? Like I see this and I'm like, yeah, I know exactly what Imani's talking about. I'm going through the same thing. So we'll move on. If you're still working on yours, I don't know if folks are, but feel free to send them in the chat and we will go through those after get finished here. Cool, cool. So I'm gonna keep it going. So we talked a lot about Action Network tonight. I'm gonna talk about it some more here, and then we will I'll just show you what it looks like. But basically this is a paid subscription platform. You can do a ton of really cool things on it, right? So you can send out emails and mobile messages. I think probably a lot of you did sign up through one of those that we sent out. So that's something where you can tell people, hey, you know, we are putting on this event, we're putting on this training. It's also a way to send out, you know, your petitions, right? And it's a really good idea if you have a group to keep that consistent flow of communication. So they know you're out there, you're working on stuff, and it keeps them engaged with other things to do, right? So our organization, we send out a weekly email, and we always have some kind of action people can take to let them know. So, you know, it really keeps them involved and engaged with this work. It just keeps them up. You can make a petition through Action Network, and it's very easy to share them through that. And you can get all of the, you know, the name, the information, you know, any phone numbers, emails, things like that, all from this petition. Same with a call or a letter campaign, right? So I think I'm sure everybody on here is in some way, shape, or form like sent a letter to a legislator, or they've, you know, called a legislator, something like that. You can set up these campaigns to where it'll literally do it all for you. It's very nice. So if we wanted to call, let's say, trying to think, Shri Tanadar is my representative. We want to call Shri Tanadar and say, hey man, you got to put all this money, you know, toward a new expressway, or something like that. You can call his office and leave those voice messages, and then that, you know, that's a tactic to move and put pressure on your targets. I don't know if you can do that with a school board member, but maybe. I think that there are ways to link those different things like that on there. And then, like I said, there are event pages like this one that you can make it. You can get all the info for your folks who are attending like that, and see it very easily. I will let me get out of this real quick. Let me show you all that Action Network. So as you can see here, you know, on an Action Network page, I can pull down, I can go to action. So I can create a petition, for example, a title, who it's going to, a little description, and then here's all the info you can have folks fill out, things like that. I'll show you our events as well. Similarly, right? So you know, for this event, we did the online to offline organizing. I said that it's virtual. Or you can have it, you know, show up at your local school board meeting and have that location. I know Joni mentioned earlier how it's kind of hard to get that information out there. This is a good way to spread that to your members and followers. Let me see. There's also our emails. So, right, you write this email out, and we can send it to a whole group of people. It's not going to let me show you right now, but you know, just so you know, this is a way to have it all in front of you. And then this translates to your activists, right? So I can search up Drew Holman. That's me. Information on there. You know, things like that. And any actions that I have taken before. So that is Action Network. Let me see.
I have a question on Action Network.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, once I'm a part of that and I get access to that app, that's great. How then I take that to my Facebook page and kind of meld the two. So right now, not being a part of that, I'm putting on events or things to do just on my Facebook page. And so how do I then put the two together?
Good question. So I would say that you'd probably want to have some of your people who are the leaders of your group, you know, like yourself, you know, maybe a couple other folks have access to this Action Network. So whoever's planning an event. So let's say, you know, you have an event where you're going to all go to the school board meeting. I'd put somebody in charge of putting that together under Action Network, setting that up, having the date and time on there. And then literally just linking it on just making a new post on Facebook. Say, hey, we have an event coming up where we're all going to the school board meeting, and just sharing that link out with your people. I'd say that's probably the best way to do it. Does that make sense? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yes, so instead of putting it embedded in an event, just do another post. I always try to do less posts so that the posts are different than trying to call them to action or to show them a bunch of things to do so that they're not getting posts all the time. So I was just asking to see if there was a different way to do that.
Okay.
So that it all center hubbed around the Facebook, you know, but
you know what? I think I also kind of know what you're talking about with this here. So we will actually, this is a perfect segue. So when you have a list of people, so let's say you have a list of all of your people on Facebook, right? Like I got Joe, I got Imani, I got Cynthia, I got, you can put them all into your Action Network. The same way how I just showed that I was on this, you know, in our database there. They will show up like that, and then you can send out an email to all those folks with that action in it, with that event. So that's probably more what you want. So in keeping with that, then when we have an activist in Action Network that we're like one of the people that we're sending things to, they're organized on an assessment scale, right? So that goes from 1 to 5. 1 being somebody who's really engaged, they're a leader. 5 is somebody who's not at all engaged. They might even be, you know, anti your cause. We put all of that information together along with where people are located, if they have some sort of association, right? So if they're a parent or they're a teacher, things like that, we put them into the Action Builder database, and we, you know, keep all of that data in one spot, so that when I do want to reach out to somebody, I can just access my list of people. We typically have conversations called one-on-ones, and we put that information into that application. So let me go on to that Action Builder. Sorry if it wants to load. Very similar thing. I won't show anybody's information, but as you can see, this is a list of people. Some of them do have assessments, some of them don't. If I were to click on somebody's profile, again, I won't because I don't want to edit. I don't have to edit out their address. I have to do that with mine. But essentially, this will show everything about a particular person that you've kept track of, right? So it'll have, oh, they attended the online to offline organizing event. Oh, they attended this school board meeting. And I can look on there and say, oh, they attended all of the school board meetings. I should reach out to them and see if they want to come to the next one, right? Good way of, keeping track of people and just knowing, who to contact about certain things. Did anybody have any questions about those two applications before we move on?
I do. So I understand that you're holding that information, that personal information that we've entered about their email address or phone number or that kind of information, their name. Does then MEJC contact them?
So it would depend how we're working with people. We typically, it's like, depends on the size of the group. We do support like smaller groups with, helping you get your people together. So that's for sure. But it's mainly, I would say it falls on, it does fall on the group though, to like get their own people together and contacted. You know what I mean? We do work with some very large groups who have staff organizers. So they especially, like, we kind of leave them to their own devices. What we do with those groups is, like, we have a Detroit-based group, right? They're called 482 Forward. If I come across somebody from Detroit, I will pass them over to 482 Forward and they will contact them. Again, like I said, with a smaller group, we help contact those people. But what we really do is pass that information along to, you, for example, to reach out to those folks. Does that kind of make sense as a process?
Yeah, I just need to know if I'm putting somebody's name on there, if they're going to get emails and things from you, separate, and they're going to wonder, how did the Action Builder or
Yes.
MEJC get my name and number? That makes me responsible for their personal data.
That's a great question. Yeah, so we don't add everybody to our email list and stuff, or our text list. Yeah, so we have a specific tag that we do for people that adds them to that list. We don't necessarily have to add it to everybody though. So if that's, if privacy is a concern with things like that, I totally understand. That's how that would go. Yeah, that's a great question. Anybody else have anything on this piece? Well, I'm going to hand it back to Imani here to finish this out.
Thank you, Drew. So when we talk about organizing, whether it's online or offline, we do always want to bring up intersectionality. And we do have the official definition right here. But in more layman's terms, it's really just the ways that people are connected. And it's usually through the lens of oppression. So that might mean that myself as a Black woman, the intersectionality that would be my race and my gender. You might think of intersectionality as also just by means of your location, your nationality, your economic status, and how those different identities kind of combine to make you as a person, or the group or your group. And just seeing how to work in between those different things. But one thing about intersectionality, because it's kind of became like a more of a sensational word than its actual meaning that what we have here, to mean like maybe forced diversity or something on the lines of that. Or people might see intersectionality as something that is divisive, but it really is just finding those unique points that make you and connecting with that. Um, so as an education justice movement, I already said that it's important to recognize how education injustice impacts our communities differently. We are all fighting for the same goal, but that does not mean that we all started at the same, at the same start line. That doesn't mean we have all the same resources or tools or access, and it would be remiss not to acknowledge that. You cannot have a successful movement. You cannot have a successful campaign or group, or even create a real safe space for your staff or for your volunteers without acknowledging how intersectionality kind of like affects their day to day. And some of that is plain as day. Some of that is just visual, and then some of that is maybe getting to know other people. And just again seeing where they're from, what they're about, their family life, um, and creating yep, and just like we were saying, creating accessible spaces helps to ensure that our movement is more accessible for folks. So sometimes intersectionality does look like, for instance, during the Black Lives Matter movement, it was an acknowledgement that yes, we have white allies, but the voice of the movement should be centered around Black folks. So it was the acknowledgement that yes, we are all fighting for justice, but making a mental note and making sure that it was important that we put a forefront of Black voices, or we made sure that we also, when we talk about intersectionality, we include LGBTQ people, and where do they fall in that spectrum. So it's just looking at every aspect of a person's identity and making sure you're acknowledging it, making sure you are helping or aiding or organizing around that. And sometimes that means stepping back, and sometimes that means stepping forward. And so we must make sure that our spaces meet the needs of the most vulnerable in our communities. And that's what I was saying again. So maybe that means stepping back. And maybe that means stepping forward. Maybe that means you're just the bridge, or you're just giving tools to someone, because we do want the most vulnerable in our community to have a platform, to have the same, the same resources, the same tools. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. My bad. I'm lagging so bad right now. Um, so as organizers, we should meet people where they're at. But the great thing about intersectionality is that there's an opening somewhere for everyone to get involved. Again, just kind of doing the due diligence of getting to know your audience, getting to know the people you want to organize around, getting to know your staff, your volunteers, and finding those common points. Again, just going back to me again, my grandparents are immigrants that came from Haiti and Trinidad, and sometimes that is a really big connecting point with me, especially if I'm working on things like immigration, or working on things like the Drive Safe bill, that aren't maybe just on the surface, but through relational organizing, that is something that I pride myself on, to tell people where my grandparents came from, where my family is from. Yeah, it's important to recognize both the differences and the commonalities. The worst thing that I think people can say when they're organizing around something, especially when it's like race related, is to say, I don't see color. It is a disservice to everybody involved to only see the commonalities or to ignore any of the differences. We can embrace the intersectionality and how we organize online and offline. Some really simple ways are using inclusive language. And sometimes using inclusive language does mean maybe adapting to, like if you're talking to youth, it's fine, throw some slang in there. But also it means having tools and like pamphlets and things like that in different languages. Having Spanish, having having Farsi, having just like Creole, all of that. Having listening sessions. Sometimes we can be so into organizing or really be for a topic, but in doing that, we assume we know what that demographic wants. So we assume we know what our community wants. We assume we know what that people want. And having actual listening sessions, communicating, getting different perspectives is really the best way to start that off. And make sure you have like a really solid foundation of people in your group and your identity. We talked about providing food because food always brings people out. Food, and also you have to think about childcare, especially if it's an in-person meeting, especially if the meeting is maybe 2-3 hours long. Have to think about things like childcare, also transportation, maybe offering a stipend or a gas card, or organizing with like a what is it, like your local bus route, and see if we can get some free public transportation, especially here in Michigan where transportation honestly, where car insurance is crazy. So those are things to think about when you're organizing. And when you think about the word intersectionality, because again, a lot of times people have turned into something that's negative, but it really means just kind of highlighting those differences and seeing where they meet up with other people or how they don't, and just how that builds your identity. So yeah, did we have any questions on that? Now we can move on. Oh, I'm just reading the comments. Love the childcare part. Completely overlooked this. Yeah. I personally don't have kids, so I sometimes when I'm organizing, I do have to be reminded as well. Like, oh yeah, we should we should definitely offer childcare. And again, that is an obstacle that often comes up as well.
And that's a great point too, just on this, to tie this whole intersectionality piece into it too, is like, that you might not be a part of a certain group and, maybe not think about that, but it's just, a reason why, we should have diverse spaces and really be just thinking about all of the experiences out there when we are organizing, online and offline. If we don't have any other questions, I know we're running up on time here. I just wanted to finish out and say thank you so much for joining us tonight. And we do have some action steps if you're wondering, what comes next. We have our Right to Read campaign going on right now, where we're hosting, in-person or virtual screenings of a documentary called Right to Read. It is about literacy, but this is something that we can tie to book bans we're seeing across the state, right? Culturally relevant curriculum, so teaching accurate history lessons and things like that. But ultimately, it's all pushing for science and evidence-based reading practices. In communities across the state, I think we see a lot of kids who do struggle with reading. So that is a campaign we are running right now. We're going to drop the link to host a screening in the chat. And certainly reach out to us if you're interested in getting more information about that. We talked a lot about organizing tonight, and if it felt like very overwhelming, or if you have been organizing and you want a refresher, we are going to host a training about just very easy ways to get involved with organizing in your community. That's going to be literally like a month from today. Oh, you know what? I think it's on the 9th, but we'll send that in. We'll send the sign up out in the chat as well. Please do fill out the evaluation form. That really helps us to know, where we need to improve so that these trainings, can continue to get better and be engaging for people. The next thing is speaking with an MEJC organizer. So, if we have somebody in your area, or even if we don't, let's get a chat going. We'd love to hear what you thought about this training and how you're able to use any skills that you learned tonight in your work in your community. And then the last thing, as I mentioned, we have our Right to Read campaign. So we are going to have a lobby day in Lansing on May 7th. More information about that will be coming through. So if you are on our email or text list, we'll be sending stuff out about that as well. But just want to say thank you so much to everybody for hopping on tonight. I'm going to stop recording.